to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trappe chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Let's go, business storytellers. Hey, how's everyone doing? Today we want to talk about when do you need to hire an attorney as a content creator and a business person. Of course, nobody ever wants to hire an attorney, right? I mean, no offense to the attorneys, but we do need them. The law is getting more and more complicated. Anything from what should your vacation policy be? How do you implement it? To how about liability or libel kind of protections, all those things, right? I don't know the answers. Can I ask AI? Probably. Will AI get it right? I remember some case where some lawyer had AI write an opinion. I think he or she got fined $5,000. Could be wrong. So it doesn't quite work that way. Today we're talking to Thomas Frank. He's a partner over at the Frank Law Firm in Long Island. Here you have the website Frank Firm PC. Really excited about this topic. We have not talked about this topic in 669 episodes. So get him on the show. Thomas, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Blow it up, and really glad to have you at Long Island. I don't know if that's is that Yankee territory? Huge Yankee fan here.
It is for me.
It is for you. Awesome. So we're not going to fill the whole show with Yankee talk, but one of these days they'll turn it up again.
Exactly.
Right now it's not looking too good. But so talk to me about hiring a lawyer. When does a business, or even like, I'm a business, right? I got the show, I got the website, I got all these different things. When do small companies need to think about hiring a lawyer, and why at that time?
I think it's a great question because this issue comes up with our office all the time, where we get prospective clients who waited to the last minute to call an attorney, and now corrective action can't be taken. So my answer to that question is, when you should contact an attorney, you should probably do it now, regardless of where you are in your business or your creation of content. If you're creating content or something like that and you have a business model in mind, it is undoubtedly going to involve certain areas of IP law, intellectual property. So it's better to contact somebody sooner rather than later, so you're not infringing on someone's trademark or copyright, and then you get served with a demand letter and now you're freaking out. In our area of business, we typically assist individuals and businesses who are dealing with financial issues. So, for the most part, that's bankruptcy, restructuring, out of bankruptcy restructuring, foreclosure, and commercial litigations, general business disputes between companies or people. And the common theme that we see in some of our clients is that they waited to the last minute to contact an attorney, and that's where more problems arise. There's this great line from this movie, The King, and it's about, Shakespeare's King Henry, and the Chief Justice goes to the king and he says, "Problems delayed have a habit of becoming crises." And it's the best line. I think about that quote probably every day because we see it so frequently with our clients. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we received a call from a former client, right? Not a current client with our office, but we had assisted them in the past with different issues. And he said, "Tom, I know you handle bankruptcy. I have a foreclosure sale date on my home tomorrow. I have, $200,000 mortgage, but the house is worth 600,000. And I'm trying to sell it so I save that equity, because if a house goes to a foreclosure sale, typically the rate of return is like 75% of value. So if it's a $600,000 house, cut off 25%, and that's probably what it will sell for at auction. So if he doesn't save the house, he's throwing that money in the garbage." And the problem was, he called us less than a day before the sale. He had filed for bankruptcy multiple times in the past. So the filing of bankruptcy would not stay the sale. And there was no time for us to file an emergency motion at the state court to stop the sale. So we were left without any time or tools
Yeah.
to solve the issue. And the problem there is he waited to the last minute. And we get this. Sometimes we're able to help people in that situation. We had a client call us 2 months ago where the foreclosure sale was scheduled for 2:30. They called us 7:30 that morning. And we were able to put forth a good faith bankruptcy filing, complete the due diligence necessary before the filing, and stop the sale. But that should be the exception. It should not be the norm. And in today's day and age, there's so many attorneys and so many, so many different fields that you kind of have your pick of the litter if you are a potential client. And 90% of these attorneys are going to give you a free consultation. Whether it's a 5-minute phone call, 10, 15, what you don't know, you don't know. And that's what's dangerous in business. You have to do your best to try to figure out what's out there that you're not paying attention to and mitigate that risk. And in this day and age where attorneys are giving you free consultations for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, reach out to attorneys that you think can assist you with the legal issue you might have. Go over those issues. And at that point in time, you can determine whether or not you need an attorney now or you don't. But waiting till the problem has arisen, that's too late. So you should do it sooner than that.
It's interesting to me, the whole free consultation thing is, I mean, certainly I'm a knowledge worker too, right? Not a license like an attorney, but certainly what I do is very much knowledge based. Drives me crazy when people say, oh, can we just hop on a call for 30 minutes to see if we can work together? I'm like, there's so many places, excuse me, that you can learn about me, that you can see if you like my personality or not.
Right.
Like, you do not need a 30-minute free call other than that you don't want to pay me. So, so I'm not a big fan of that anyways. But the other thing is when you talk about these people that come in like last minute, I mean, I imagine they might be existing clients, because if a new client comes in at 7:30, like, I mean, there's no way you can build everything in that short of a time period, or is there?
No, you can. So the client I mentioned that contacted us yesterday, he was an existing client. He was a former client, but that was about 4 or 5 years ago, right? For an unrelated issue. So he might as well have been a new client because we were getting caught up to speed. But in that situation, we did not have enough time to do something to help him. But the client that I said called at 7:30, that was a new client. Looked us up online, and we were able to do the diligence we needed to do very, very quickly. Because, for example, in a consumer bankruptcy, if a person is a W-2 employee and their spouse is a W-2 employee, running the diligence on their financial condition is not that difficult. You're looking at their tax returns, you're asking them about any real estate or personal property they have, which is easy enough to identify. You're asking for their pay stubs and their bank statements, all of which is like the foundation, like the most basic, the financial information. And in reviewing that information, you could determine whether or not someone qualifies for a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, or if they don't qualify. Especially if you're doing it with, consistently. You can isolate the issues very, very quickly, which is why it's important to not go to those jack of all trade attorneys, because they're not doing that field with so much repeatability that these issues are second nature to them, and isolating the problems are almost automatic. The attorneys that sell themselves as kind of a jack of all trades, that are, outside of what a reasonable scope for their field would be, it's going to take them a lot longer to properly assess the situation. So we get new clients calling us last minute. We get we get current clients calling us last minute all the time. And if you're good at your job, you start to develop a reputation of someone who could solve these problems, which we can and do. But in the situation like that, you'd just prefer to have more time to assess the situation. There was one client who had a similar urgent issue where there was a sale date, but he called us 2 weeks beforehand. So we were able to identify the issues under bankruptcy law, put a plan in place, get the documents prepared so that they're pristine. And when they were presented to the judge is acknowledging everything is in proper form, and we could get them the emergency relief that they need. But it's still, sometimes new clients will just call you out of the blue, and it's a common trend. People don't want to face their problems. That's nothing new. That tale's as old as time.
Huh. Is that the reason why people really kind of drag their feet, or is there another? I mean, I'd be interested to dive into that in a second here. But the one thing I was just thinking about is, so I mean, most everybody I work with for this stuff, at least, like they pay basically up front, right, or along the way. So I don't have time to invoice things and wait for them, make sure they paid them, and then if they didn't, blah blah blah. But that's not always the case. So I have actually had disputes where people didn't pay their bills, right? And I had to go take them to court in another state because I live in Iowa, but I don't really work with anybody in Iowa, So
Right.
it's always like out of state, somewhere else, who knows where. And so just like the amount of time it would take me to figure out, first of all, what district are they even in? Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? Is it the bill? Is it the business, or is it where the business actually is, or is it where it's registered, or like, I mean, there's all these things, and we haven't even started about filing a lawsuit yet. We're just talking about like figuring out the basics. So it's like the knowledge on one hand, and then it's also the time, right?
Mhm.
Because it would take me time. Maybe I can find it, maybe I can't. But so you kind of have those two things intermingled, do you not?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. If we're talking about, in the situation you provided where someone didn't pay you, now I have to find an attorney. I have to figure out where that attorney should be, right? Where would we be bringing the lawsuit if they're in a different jurisdiction? Those are great questions, but they're not questions you have to answer. If you call an attorney, say your local attorney in Iowa, and said, I have a dispute with a client where they haven't paid me 20 grand. They live in New York. I live in Iowa. What do you think? That attorney, if he's a litigator or a debt collection attorney, can say jurisdictions in New York, right? Or jurisdiction could be here, venue could be here, right? You've already gotten an answer to the question instead of you trying to figure it out yourself. And something like a debt collection or a non-payment or a breach of contract, that's subject to a statute of limitations, just like any other cause of action, right? Tort, foreclosure, whatever it is. So if you wait a couple of years, oh, well, you know what, I'll get around to it. No, you've just created urgency because you waited, right? You could have just called John Doe, Iowa attorney and say, this is the situation. What do you think? And in less than 5 minutes, that attorney can tell you where he or she thinks venue or jurisdiction for that dispute is. So it goes back to my point. You should still be calling that attorney sooner than later because you'll run up to the statute of limitations and have no idea. And you'll blow past it and you'll have no idea. And then your claim's done, right? If all they have to do is raise the statute of limitations defense against you, and that claim's gone. You're not going to get paid for that amount that's owed to you.
So what's interesting about that answer too is, so the example I gave is we didn't even talk about the venue, right? We just kind of like the venue is wherever the venue is. Like we'll have to decide that. So this is another reason why potentially you should have in your contracts the venue for
Oh
it
yeah,
is Lynn County, Iowa, because now I can hire my attorney in Lynn County, Iowa, and I don't have to go to um, Atlanta, Georgia, or where. I mean, who knows where, right? Could be anywhere, depending on who the client is. And then that way you can have that client attorney relationship, and they know your business, they know what you got to do, and then you just take them to court in the same place every time.
exactly right. That's actually a perfect point. I should have brought that up, Chris. Well, in a situation like yours, or a client that's consistently providing the same services to their customers and disputes have arisen in the past, there should be a choice of law and a choice of venue provision in that agreement stating any dispute, like for me, any disputes in Nassau County, New York, right? So I don't mind if we have to go to a fight because my attorney's in Nassau County, New York, right? But if the choice of law provision says Austin, Texas, now you have to retain Austin counsel. You're not there. If there's a dispute where you have to testify and they won't let you testify virtually, now you're flying to Austin. So if you have counsel kind of at the ready or you have an existing relationship with them, you can prevent that problem because that attorney, again, very quickly could say, include this choice of law provision in your contract and you won't have this problem, or this venue provision and you won't have this problem.
What's interesting too is, so it makes sense to me in theory. I mean, I think it's always easier to talk about it, which is again why you need the partnership right out of the gate, so you don't have to think about it when you're under pressure. But at what point, like maybe is there like a revenue number where businesses should consider it? So I'll give you an example. So if somebody pays me, I don't know, $500 to do something, right? And let's say we didn't like each other or whatever. I have a complaint against them, they against me. The chances that we're going to sue each other are like pretty slim to none, right? I mean, because it's going to cost us more to even do that than just to be like, whatever, moving on. But if it's like $10,000 contracts, then maybe now we're getting a little bit closer. 50,000. I mean, probably yes. 100,000 definitely. But where's that line in your opinion where people definitely need somebody? Maybe, probably, maybe not. And I know there's always reasons why you might want to. I mean, I've gotten a court over like $100 things just for the principal. It costs way more than $100. But that was an important case just for that reason.
Right.
But in general, if you were to look at the finances, what's like your numbers there, if that makes sense?
Well, I don't know that there's a number for contacting attorney. There's definitely a number for retaining one.
Yeah.
So kind of goes to the free consultation point earlier. If you have a dispute for $500, the first question you should be asking yourself is, do I really care about this $500, or is it not worth my time to get into a fight over it? The first decision is a personal decision. Is this worth my time? Is this something that could snowball into a larger thing potentially? Am I going to deal with this problem consistently? So it's not just $500. It could be 5,000. It could be 50,000 if a number of people have this problem with me. So I think the answer is still the same. Contact the attorney sooner than later. Doesn't mean you have to retain them. That attorney may say to you, hey, listen, this is a $500 dispute. My fee is going to be $2,500 just to get involved. Do you really want to do this? And at that point, you can make a decision, but at least you fleshed out the issues. If you don't do that, you don't really know if it's going to become a larger problem. It may not. So the answer still is contact someone sooner than later, and then you can make a determination whether or not retention is necessary. And because that's gonna have the money component. The attorney you're hiring, unless they're working on a contingency, is going to be looking for funds, whether it's a retainer or a fixed fee. There's a trend towards fixed fee rather than hourly billing nowadays. But at that point, you're making an informed decision. You're not just hitting your head in the sand.
So basically, if you have an attorney, if you retain them, if they have a retainer, they work against however they bill. And I'm a big fan of not hourly billing. My favorite story still is I had an attorney the first time I had an attorney do something for me, and I had a number in my head, what I thought the service for that, it was like a contract, what it was worth, but he didn't charge me that number. He charged me what the hourly rate was and how long
Right.
it took him, which was actually lower than
Right.
I thought I got a bargain, to be honest. But had he charged me whatever that number was. But the thing is, so you have a retainer, and then you can just basically ask questions, right? You don't have to reestablish getting you up to speed, who I am, who you are. You can just be like, hey, Thomas, I got this thing going on over here. What's your advice? And then you can spend an hour or two or whatever, right? And you already know my situation. I mean, is that one advantage of that or not?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We actually provide a service to a lot of small to medium-sized businesses in our area where we charge them a fixed fee for every month. And no matter what happens, it could be a million things, it could be nothing. They don't have to hesitate to email, call us to get involved to resolve an issue. And sometimes it's as simple as me sending an email or my partner sending an email, or it's more drawn out. It's litigation. It's formal correspondence back and forth. But we know them so well; they're like family to us at this point. So there is no catching up to speed. We're already up to speed. So the conversation could be a 5-minute phone call. We know exactly what needs to be done, rather than first 30-minute consultation, which is somewhat preliminary, then a more full-blown out hour-long consultation, then the retention process, so on and so forth. So there's a huge benefit to having to that attorney in the stable, so to speak, because you can foster an efficient environment. Like you said before, with your attorney who you were prepared to spend X, but he ended up billing you Y, which was less than X. And that attorney worked efficiently. He figured out, or she figured out, what needed to be done, and they executed quickly, and they billed you fairly. And I'm sure you really enjoyed that experience with that attorney, assuming they did quality work. So there is a plus to that, to having that personal instinct. It keeps everything running more efficiently rather than trying to engage attorneys that are just coming in to put out fires that you've created because you didn't seek legal counsel sooner.
Yeah. Now, for what kind of things should you reach out to an attorney for when it comes to business? I mean, um, one example that comes to my mind is there was some kind of not disclosure form, but like who owns the right to content or something like that. And I'm pretty sure I'm very confident that I made the case for, well, you should just ask our attorney. And somebody else says, we can just see what templates are out there and like copy those. And there's plenty of issues with that, to to be
Right.
quite honest, because it might not even align with like my own philosophy, right? In fact, I think the one template said something about, we own all the exclusive rights to your content, blah blah blah, and that it wasn't even that model. It was just, the model basically was, you give us a license to use your content, and you still are responsible for it being correct. I'm not responsible, or something like that. But if you're just copying a template of some website, some random website, you're not going to get that, right? You have to talk to an attorney. But what are some other examples where you should reach out to an attorney? And if you disagree that you think I should reach out to an attorney in that case, let me know. I just assumed here that you would agree with me.
Using the forms, they can be helpful because the forms typically include language addressing issues that you may not have known about. So it may just kind of broaden your knowledge base about the issue. So then when you do speak to an attorney, you're speaking from a place of knowledge rather than just asking random questions. Because if you don't ask the right questions, the attorney's just not going to fill in the blanks for you all the time. So it's useful to have lined up questions, or what you think the issues may be, so that you ask pointed questions to your counsel and they can advise you. Quite honestly, in our practice, we don't deal with intellectual property and content and stuff like that so much. It's more the business side of things, and in more often than not, we tell people, just give us a call, because we don't bill clients for phone calls. We don't bill clients for emails. We're not trying to beat people over the head. We're trying to make sure that they have what they need to have their business thrive. So clients call us about people who haven't paid them. They call us when they haven't paid people as well, and things like that. So it could be any number of things where it's just easier to give us a call rather than just sit with that stress over your head as to whether or not you need counsel or not.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting. Certainly, people should consider that, and make sure they have an attorney, um, at least in their phone, even if
Yeah.
not necessarily on retainer. Thomas, really appreciate you coming on the show. Do you take clients in New York State, or where?
We service all of Long Island and New York City. So anybody could reach us at our website, frankfirmpc.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we provide 24/7 emergency services if necessary, because some people wait till the last minute.
They do. Awesome. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming on the show, and we are out.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.